to go ahead and hit record and we'll talk about it while we do it. So it's basically you just saying, hey, this is Steve Rogers from steverogers.net, and you're listening to Jeff Smith on Vroom Vroom Veer. Watch out.
Okay, got it.
So whenever you're ready, go for it.
Okay. This is Steve Rogers. I'm on Jeff Smith's Vroom Vroom Veer, which I love. And if you want to remember my name, just remember Captain America, because when I check into hotels, people say, Steve Rogers, like Captain America, you mean? I'm like, yeah, I'll take that. I like it better than Mr. Rogers.
I remember your name, and I'm not going to call you Captain. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
When I was growing up as a kid, it was so funny. I mean, I always got the, hey, where's your sweater? Where can I be in your neighborhood? Because it was the Mr. Rogers show.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers kids show. And I always got this Rogers thing. And I'm like, okay. And it's not like Mr. Rogers was bad, but he was a little geeky and he was a kid show host.
Right.
So in these previous years, when the Marvel series have gotten so popular and then Captain America came out, and I even forgot that Captain America's name was Steve Rogers.
Me too.
Right? And so I started checking, and I was traveling a lot, and I would check into hotels, and they'd look up at me and go, Steve Rogers, like Captain America? I'm like, and I had to think about it. I'm like, yeah, I like that Captain America. Yeah, check me in, please.
All right, well, let me hit stop. I'll be right back.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready to thoughtfully steer away from your revved up, frenzied, and far too often scripted life? Then welcome to Vroom Vroom Veer with Jeff Smith, where he guides you down the road differently traveled by sharing unique experiences with guests who have managed to shift away from a life stuck on cruise control and veered their way into a more authentic and fulfilling one in all sorts of interesting and kind of remarkable ways. Get ready to Vroom Vroom Veer with your differently traveled road chauffeur, Jeff Smith.
Tristan White, thank you so much for being on Vroom Vroom Veer and welcome to the show. How's it going?
Jeff, all's well here. Thank you. It's awesome to be here with you. Thanks for the invitation.
I appreciate you being here. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business over there. And you're at tristanwhite.com.au. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got it right. You
All
got it right. The .au. I'm down here in Australia, Jeff.
Right. I got it. It takes us Yanks a little while to figure out what's going on with anything that's not .com. So I apologize. So talk a little bit about what you're most excited about in your business today.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to be bold enough or maybe embellish enough to say that there's two things I'm super excited about.
That's fine. That's great.
Good. Well, the thing is, Jeff, I believe the world needs more great places to work. That's one of my big beliefs. And I do two things to sort of serve that purpose. One of them is that I lead an organization, I'm a physiotherapist, and I lead a physiotherapy clinic or group. And we've been going for a long time, and we can talk a bit more about that later. But we set a big 10-year goal to deliver 2 million consultations to Australian seniors, older people, to help them stay mobile, safe, and happy. And we set that goal in 2009 with the 10-year horizon to deliver by the end of 2018. And 2018 come and 2018 went, and we weren't quite there. But I can tell you that this week just passed in mid-August 2020, 11.5 years after we set that goal, we have just delivered the 2 millionth consultation to help seniors stay mobile, safe, and happy. So we're pretty darn excited about that.
Congratulations. That's pretty amazing. You, that's a nice benchmark.
And Jeff, the consultations are all well and good to count those interactions with our elderly clients. But I'm really excited about is the 405 members of our team that have contributed over those 11 and a half years of the conversations, the relationships that have been built. Dare I say it, the connections and the veers that have probably come along the ways in that as well. So that's something I'm pretty pumped about, Jeff. But the other thing as well, I just want to quickly mention is the second thing that I do to serve this purpose of helping create more great places to work in the world is that I share my story, and I've written a book, and I've also I help other leaders to learn the skills, build the confidence, and be supported to be the best leaders they can be, which ultimately will help them create another great place to work in the world. And just in the last couple of months, I've opened up something new. It's called the Culture is Everything Club. It's an online space, a safe online space for leaders to come together, and I can help to support them and guide them to. It's lonely as a leader, and it's a space where they can learn the skills. And so I'm really excited that we've spent 2 months with the 21 founding members of the Culture is Everything Club, and we're about to open the doors to some new members to join on the journey and hopefully create more great places to work, Jeff. So that's a long answer to your question,
that's
but
okay. That's really good. And it's a noble goal, and I like that because, gosh, we need more of those great places to work. I agree. I think we can agree that there's not enough. Yes. I think there's a lot of people out there that need a job but don't necessarily love their job. But I digress. This is Room from Veer, so that means we have to go back in time and get some of your really good stories about veering, because you weren't always like running your own business and meeting awesome goals like that. So where did you grow up, and what was childhood like for Tristan White?
Jeff, so I grew up in a very small town in the most southeastern part of the Australian mainland.
Okay.
It's a little town called Foster, and Foster has around about 1,000 friendly people.
Okay.
And,
all right. The rest of them are all assholes?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you got it.
I'm kidding.
I understand. Now, there's about 1,000 people in Foster, and a little town. And there was, I grew up with my mum, my dad, who my dad was an ex-serviceman. He
nice.
served in the army and he served in the Vietnam War.
Wow.
But by the time I was born, he and my mum lived in a little town called Foster, and Dad served or worked on the oil rigs between the Australian mainland and Tasmania. So off the southeastern coast of the Australian mainland, there's an oil field. Okay. And my dad worked on oil rigs, and he was away for 1 week, at home for 1 week, 7 on, 7 off.
Wow.
And that was
That's got to be rough.
Yeah, look, it was. And here's the thing is most people respond and say it must be rough. And I think it was most rough on him because he had to leave every second week.
Right.
And I think it was very difficult for my mother because every second week she was parenting on her own. And then there's the transition between her husband being there and being away. But it was my sister and I, who was 2 years older than myself, and my mum all the time, and my dad, I guess, half the time, I suppose, Jeff. And but I loved it. It was a great. When Dad was home, he was really home. He didn't have to go to work on those on that week off. So he would pick us up from school and take me to footy training and all sorts of things. So it was there was plenty of upside as well, Jeff. And so in this little town, there wasn't a heap to do. So sports was a big part of our lives, and basketball and football and I'm talking Aussie rules, AFL football. Jeff, and tennis and surfing and you name it, there was a whole lot of sport. So that sort of defines the early part of my career, I reckon, Jeff.
I have to figure out now, what is Aussie rule football? Is that like American style football or soccer? Is it?
Wow, it's a combination, Jeff.
Really? More like what you guys call, what we might think of as rugby kind of thing?
Yeah, it is. So here's the thing: is that you can catch the ball, so you can use your hands to catch the ball, but you can't throw the ball. So it is it's a kicking game where you catch it and then you kick it to another person, and then they catch it and move it forward, and you have to kick it through some big sticks to score, to get the goals, Jeff. So that's Yeah, and there is tackling without the helmet and without the padding that you might be familiar with.
Wow. Okay. So it's like it's a little bit more manly, maybe. I don't know.
Wow.
Scary.
Yeah, there is plenty of injuries. There are plenty of injuries.
There's
Jeff.
What do they call it? I just watched this show on Netflix. You guys get Netflix everywhere, right?
Yeah.
There's this show. I think it's called Home Team or Home Game maybe. And it went through all of these different sports that you probably never heard of. Yeah. And there was this sort of like almost I think it was in Italy, right? But it's very regional, right? So they're very specific, like piece of Italy, and I can't remember the details, but it was like instead of having blockers, right, the front line guys, they would have fistfights. And none of them were professional. Yeah, and they weren't doing it for money. They had regular jobs, and they would do this job, right? It was just amazing. So if you ever get a chance, figure out this, I think it was called Home Game or Home Team on Netflix. It was really good.
I'll have a look, Jeff. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. Sorry, I digress. Okay. So you're playing sports and you're in a very small town and your dad's around and in your life once a week, or sorry, every other week? Yeah, every other week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then he's gone. Right. Okay. So did you go to college next?
Yeah, I did, Jeff. I did, and so probably this is a good point. And our talk about various forms of football is probably a good thing to mention, because in said playing a fair bit of sport, I also had a fair few injuries in my youth.
I believe it.
Yeah, hard to believe, hey? Yeah, but Jeff, I got injured. I don't know why, but I was the kid who injured a knee or broke a wrist, or I had various injuries throughout my teens, especially.
Right.
And,
okay.
And so I had some injuries, and so I ended up having to visit or going to see some physical therapists. And
interesting.
And so I was introduced to medicine and sports injuries and sports rehabilitation very early in my life.
Right.
And that inspired a passion or an interest in whether I would like to be a physical therapist when I grew up or when I got older. And so when I was 15 years old, Jeff, I did work experience as a physical therapist, and I went and spent some time in a physical therapist's rooms and learning what they did.
Wow.
But interestingly, Jeff, after that week or 2 weeks of doing doing work experience, I decided that I didn't want to be a physical therapist.
Nothing wrong with that. So how old were you? Did you say 15?
I was about 15 or 16 or thereabouts. Yes,
that's nothing wrong with that, because who knows what the hell you want to do. But that's good. It's an amazing opportunity you had there.
Look, it is. And so, Jeff, but here's the thing is that I then, I still had my eye on something related to health. And so I was dead set on just studying hard at the end of the last few years of high school and getting into medical school to be a doctor, to be a medical doctor.
Okay.
And I worked as hard as I could, and I finished high school. I did very well in high school, and I had an interview to be selected to medical school here in our nearest big city is Melbourne, Australia.
Right.
And I didn't get accepted to medical school, and I was devastated. I was really heartbroken. It really was a big kick in the guts, and I'd sort of told anyone that would listen that I really wanted to go to medical school, and it was a really big kick in the guts. And I almost that summer. So here in Australia, our school year finishes in just before Christmas, in late November, early December.
Okay.
And that is also summertime for us as well.
Right.
And so that summer between end of November, when we got the results from school, but then I didn't get into medical school right through till February, March, when university commences. I was down in the dumps, and I was like, I'm just going to stay home and sulk and be unhappy with myself and be disappointed.
Sure.
And my dear mother, who's been very supportive and influential in my life, guided me to head off to university, even if it wasn't my dream course, Jeff. I had an opportunity. I'd been accepted into a course of a strange combination, Jeff, of science and law of all things. So studying the law. I headed off to university. I studied a year of science and law. I still had my heart set on studying medicine. I reapplied for medicine. It wasn't to be.
Right.
And I.
So tell me, explain to this. Is there sort of like a test? You just take this big test, and it's either a pass-fail kind of scenario?
Yeah, it is. It is really that.
Okay.
It is like that.
Wow.
Jeff. So it's
interesting.
It's pretty painful, but Jeff,
that's pretty brutal for young people.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You got
Jeff,
your heart set on a thing. Yeah.
You know what, Jeff? What the most useful thing for me, looking back all those years ago, is I was a heartbroken 17 or 18-year-old, and but I was taking it far too. It was brutal, as you say, but it really helped me to realise that health-related career was what I was looking for. But if it wasn't to be medicine, there's other options. There's other ways we can go about it. And so I reapplied for medicine. It wasn't to be, but I chose some other options including some other health-related options. And full circle comes around, and the opportunity I was accepted into university to study physical therapy, Jeffrey. So I
and then you're
so
like, that's not so bad. I remember that. Maybe it wasn't so bad.
Right. Exactly.
Interesting.
So the answer to your question is I did study physical therapy, which here in Australia is known as physiotherapy. And I went off to university, the University of Melbourne, about 2 hours drive from my hometown of Foster, and I spent 4 years studying to be a physiotherapist, and I'm very, very, very grateful that I got that opportunity and that I chose to accept it, because it's been a wonderful platform or starting point for many other twists and turns in my life, Jeff.
No, I like that. So I think it sounds like it might be a little bit different. So talk a little bit about, just briefly, like, what sort of work does that therapist do? So do you focus mostly on injury recovery? Would that be fair to say? Or is it more like, I'm having pain and I'm coming in to see you to ask you to help me move better? Where does it lie?
Well, Jeff, here's the thing: is it's and then this is an interesting part of the next part of my career as well. So it's a good start at question, Jeff. But,
okay, I just got lucky then.
Yeah.
It's different here in the States, so I'll talk about that a little bit too.
Yeah, sure. So physiotherapy, as we know it here, which is similar, I think, to physical therapy in the States,
right?
But the most known, if you ask the wider population about what they know of physiotherapy here in Australia, they'll mostly talk about recovery from injuries, rehabilitation,
right,
and maybe sports injuries, and they might see a physiotherapist helping elite sports people to recover from injuries and the like, and that's the most common public perception.
Okay.
But also, Jeff, there are people who have been through health problems, including people who have had a orthopedic problem, like a knee reconstruction or a shoulder reconstruction,
right?
Or then as people get older, they might have a knee replacement or a hip replacement,
right?
And those procedures nearly always are followed by a series of exercises and re-strengthening and rehabilitation that can involve a physiotherapist. And so that's sort of the most common understanding of physiotherapy. So how does that differ in the States, Jeff?
It's about the same. I just wanted to make sure, because I don't think we have a specialty here in the States for, say, like, there's no injury, right? But you're just having chronic movement or pain issues, muscle related. You can't go see a physical therapist, because you can, but they'll refer you somewhere else, or I don't know, try to do something else. It's usually like here in the States with a physical therapist, if you get in a car accident, for instance, or you had like one of those like a hip replacement or a knee replacement, then you go to see that physical therapist. But not so much if you have chronic pain or chronic movement issue, then they don't want to see you. So it seems pretty much similar.
Yeah, it is similar. Although there are physiotherapy clinics here in Australia, there are many of them which are like in a suburban strip of shops or the like, and even in shopping centres, where you can actually go directly and book to and pay to see a physiotherapist if you have got a sore neck or a sore knee or the like. And so that is a little bit different by the sounds of things.
Yeah. So, and then in the States, I don't know how about in Australia. So it also gets mixed up with like car insurance versus medical insurance. So that's a whole different story too. So most of the sports people are doing primarily car accident rehab, right? But then they'll also do cash payment, sports medicine kind of stuff. But that's all cash, right? So basically that whole world, they kind of ride the line between different insurances, which is crazy. I'm just only learning that because my wife was in a car accident in 2018. So then you go out and hire a lawyer, and then the lawyer makes a deal with one of these physical therapy people, and you go through that whole thing, but you're paying through the whole thing gets paid through by car insurance, which is different. So anyway, that's a different discussion altogether. So this is interesting. Go ahead.
I was just going to just double check. This is not a podcast about insurances, Jeff. I don't think
it's
right?
not. No, it's not. I occasionally veer off. That's why we call it Vroom Vroom Veer. So I digress. You're right. Sorry about that.
I forgive you.
Thank you. Okay. So now, did you start as a physical therapist or physiotherapist in a job scenario first?
Yeah, okay. I did, Jeff. And so this is where a very early part of another veer, if you will, from in my life happened. And that is that I'm a bit of a dreamer, Jeff. I like to dream and peer off into the future and consider what's possible, and then make a bit of a sketch or a plan.
Okay.
And while I was studying physiotherapy at the University of Melbourne, I sort of did my research, and I thought about what I wanted to do in the future of down the line in my career, and but I also understood the usual path of a physiotherapist here in Australia, and my destination that I wanted to get to, that I thought that I wanted to get to when I was studying at college, Jeff, was I thought that I wanted to get to become a physical therapist who was very good at sports injuries and helping people that are having problems that are slowing them down, and they can't run as fast as they want to, jump as high as they need to, tackle hard enough, and the like. And so I ultimately wanted to be an elite sports physiotherapist, a partner or at least a physio that worked in a busy sports practice, working with amateur athletes and or elite professional athletes. And ultimately, Jeff, I wanted to be the physical therapist for my favorite AFL, Aussie Rules football team, which just happened to be the Richmond Tigers, is my preferred team. And this is my sort of a 10-year dream. I'm thinking it's going to take me a long time to build the skills and the connections and everything to get to this point.
Right.
But Jeff, what most junior physiotherapists do in Australia is they finish college and then they go on to work at a large teaching hospital where they learn the foundations. That they become a junior physiotherapist in a big teaching institution. Okay. And learn the foundations, and then so my dream was to start finish university, go and work in a large teaching hospital, and then slowly progress over to more of a private practice and sports focus. And then perhaps it was going to take me up to 10 years to get across to this elite sports specialty. And that was my dream. That was me daydreaming as I went. And but Jeff, as university finished, and it was time for me to apply for jobs, as I started looking around applying for jobs in these large teaching hospitals, I had this big head versus heart challenge. And my head was telling me that this is definitely the right first step in my career. And my heart saying, man, Tristan, can you really stomach that? You've just spent 2 to 3 years of your 4-year degree as a student doing clinical placements and learning the ropes inside these large teaching organizations, and you didn't really enjoy it as a student. What makes you think you're going to like doing it as a physiotherapist? And so it's a big challenge, and I finally listened to my heart, Jeff, and I didn't go to work in those. I didn't go to work in those private. In that large teaching hospital. I went to work in a smaller group of private physiotherapy practices. Okay. And I got to work with some people that have had some car accidents, and with some people that have had some accidents at work and had injured backs and shoulders and the like. And I did. I also got to work with some elite underage athletes, so some under 18 athletes, and so I got a bit of a taster of what sports physiotherapy may look like. Right. So yeah, that's the way I sort of that's my transition, Jeff, from physiotherapy student into the workforce.
I can tell a story where when I went to massage school, like I was telling you in the pre-show chat, as we say. Yeah. So I went to massage school, and part of that was this trigger point therapy, which is, sort of like teams with physical therapists, and chiros and all the different modalities and practitioners. And one of my teachers gave me an opportunity to volunteer at the UCLA football team massage whatever program, I guess. So basically they had us bring our massage tables to the locker room and give sports medicine massage to some of the players while they were practicing or after practice. Right. And I was only there one day. I showed up, I did one, and I was like, yeah, okay, I don't want to do that again. And it wasn't anything about the players. It was the culture was very much not what I was looking for, if that makes any kind of sense. So when I started doing massage, in my head, I was like wanting to like not have anybody in between me and my client other than me and my client. Right. And in a team scenario, like in that football team, I couldn't do anything that wasn't authorized. Right. Every little touch was like, no, don't do that. Right. Don't do that. I don't care what you know. Don't do that. Right. Just do what we tell you to do, And I was like, yeah, I understand why that needs to be, because these guys need to be, sometimes you can do therapy and it makes it hurt more in the short term before it gets better. So I understand that sort of mentality of you can't do anything that's going to make them not ready to practice or play. I just didn't want to do it as a job, if that makes any kind of sense.
It makes total sense, Jeff. It's and that's the very reason why I chose to not work in those large teaching institutions, because it's the rules are very rigid in those places for a good reason. For a good reason.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they need to be there.
They need to be there, but they're not for me.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was like. So the guy called me back and he was like, are you coming back? And I'm like, nah, I understand this is a volunteer opportunity, but most people think there might be a job at the end. I don't want that job. And he was kind of like taken aback, because UCLA is kind of a prestigious place. But anyway, again, I digress. Okay. So you make a veer with the heart, which is always good. So that probably paid off. So what was next job-wise after that sort of job scenario played itself out?
Yeah, so Jeff, I then threw myself into this first job as a physiotherapist,
right? And
as working in a growing group of practices where there was some of that a varied type of work. However, Jeff, I was spend most of my working week in a small physical therapist's treatment room, a small room or a small single office, as other people might know, a consulting room. And I must have been one of the most naive, brand new physiotherapists there were, Jeff, because I of course we're all green at that moment of our lives, and I understand that. But one thing that I didn't expect, I didn't realize, or I didn't expect, I didn't understand the impact it was going to have on me, was that I hadn't realised that I'm a fairly energetic sort of fella, and I'm trying to look on the bright side of most things. But every 20 minutes or so, every 20 or 30 minutes during my working day as a physical therapist, I had a new patient who'd come and see me who was booked to come and see me inside that consulting room, and every one of them was down in the dumps. They weren't very happy, and of course they weren't, Jeff, because they're injured.
Right. Yeah. I get it.
They're coming. I am the beacon of hope in many ways, because they're coming to see me and to then hopefully make progress towards getting back to the life that they want to lead. And so that part of it was a real challenge for me. And secondly, even though that the energy drain was difficult for me, I also didn't really enjoy, and similar to your volunteer experience, I didn't really enjoy going to sports training or football training after a full day of work in the clinic, then going to training with these elite underage athletes, and then on the weekends traveling and going to games to be the physiotherapist at the games.
Right.
It was a paid activity, but it wasn't a particularly well paid, and it was a stepping stone to this maybe elite sports physiotherapy in the future. And I just didn't think that I was serving the world well enough by helping these young guys to be able to run faster, jump higher, tackle harder.
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
And so I really thought, how can I use my skills to be more useful in the world? And so I left that job, Jeff, and I didn't really have a plan. And so this is now 5 summers on, when from the summer that I spent sort of dragging myself around the house, being upset about not getting to medical school. And but I moved back home to my parents' house in Foster with those other 1,000 people in the town.
Right.
And
Okay.
with no job, with a physiotherapy degree and 4 years at university school, plus 1 year of science and law study, and 1 year of working as a physiotherapist. So I guess it was 6 years on, and but I had no real direction, and then my mother was heartbroken or not sure what the hell was going on.
Right.
Jeff. And
that's a serious fear when you move back home. Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. But Jeff, I reflected hard. I thought, and this was much more of a sabbatical than a crisis. It was more of a, I'm going to be doing something purposeful in my life. I'm just not quite sure what it is at this moment.
It's like a retreat to regroup kind of scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with that.
Where I found myself, Jeff, after a few weeks and months of reflection, and I didn't realize I guess I am a bit of an entrepreneur at heart, and it's turned out I am a business owner and entrepreneur. I didn't realize at this stage, but the combination of reflecting on what I enjoyed to do as a physical therapist, as well as seeking out an opportunity that I think I could create firstly a job for myself in, and that is that I really realized in that depth of reflection that I actually, despite the fact that I'd been working towards medicine and sports physiotherapy and this elite, sexy part of the industry in many people's eyes, and especially my eyes, there's a lot of ego involved in where I thought I was headed to, Jeff. I realized that I got much more satisfaction from working with older people people who were probably still living in their own homes, but they might have been slowing down in terms of their ability to get around, to do the shopping, to look after their house, to do all those sort of things. And if I could go and visit them and I could help that older person to stay living at home so they could walk down a couple of steps out of their front door, walk out to the driveway and collect the mail from the mailbox on the street and have a chat to their neighbours while they're doing it, and then safely head back inside and read the newspaper or the mail. If that was important to them, then that was a useful thing that I could help them with and use my physical therapy skills to do. And so, Jeff, with that in mind, my next move was I went and worked as a part-time subcontractor, 12 hours per week at a quite old and quite tired and, dare I say it, smelly nursing home.
Okay. I've been in one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It was so far from the elite, sexy part of the industry that I'd spoken about, and I barely told a soul. Jeff, I was the ego was still involved, and I was a bit embarrassed about my direction I'd chosen. But my heart was happy, and
well, it's a noble cause, I think, in my mind. I like that. Yeah.
And so that was the next move, Jeff. And so I wasn't sure where it was going to take me, but I thought it was going to make me happy, and I saw an opportunity to use my physical therapy skills with older people. And the entrepreneurial angle, if you will, is that the population here in Australia, in all Western countries, and I think nearly every country in the world, is that the population is getting older, and there'll be more and more older people that are going to be needing this type of service in the future. And so that's where I headed off to. That was my next move, Jeff.
I love it. That's great. I did a massage, and some of my favorite massage experiences were with older people. I worked in a spa for like a year, and there was this one client who another massage therapist, saw, and the client wanted a mud bath, but she drove the therapist crazy. Not a mud bath. What do they call those? The mud wrap. Yeah, mud wrap, right? It's one of those spa treatments. It's warm. It's nice, right? It's supposed to just be really comfortable, right? But this lady was cold. She's hot. She's cold. She's hot. So she was like, the other massage therapist was like, I can't see her again. So the owner asked me to see her, and it was beautiful. So it turned out that she was having chemotherapy. So her temperature regulation in her body was all screwed up, right? So she could barely get through that. It was like, I would try to put a little bit of mud on, and she's like, it's too hot. So I'd put a little water, but we got through it, slowly, and with lots of talking, we got through it, and it was beautiful. It was just amazing. So I know what you mean, because that client population is, when it's right, it's very rewarding in your brain and in your soul, I think.
Yeah, entirely, Jeff. I'm so pleased that you can connect with that idea, because it's not something that's that a lot of people can connect with, and there's a lot of, I guess I use the word again, but there's a lot of ego in the health world, and there's a lot of people sneering down their nose at people that are not in the more popular or sexy parts of the industry. But my goodness, that's where the real work happens, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I can't remember who. I think it might have been a blogger, Brain Pickings. I can never say the lady's name. I think it's like something like Maria Popova, and I'm probably saying that bad. But I think she was on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and she said, a good rule of thumb for me is to never agree to do anything that is you're doing it only for prestige and or money. Now, you can do things for money and prestige as long as there's a better reason behind it, or what I should say, above it, right? So if there's this amazing opportunity and it happens to pay a lot of money and prestigious, then do it. But if your primary motivations are prestige or money, it's probably not a good idea. And that, as I apply that rule to opportunities, it has not steered me wrong yet.
Yeah, I like that, Jeff. That's a really good lesson.
Yeah. Okay, so how did you end up starting your own business?
Well, Jeff, so here's how it went. As I went and worked the 12 hours per week at this at this old nursing home, and I really loved it. I remember the 30 elderly people that worked there, and there was a fellow called George, who's very memorable for me, and his wife Mavis, George's roommate Les, and then there was the other residents down the corridor, including Marjorie, who's someone I remember quite clearly. And Jeff, this is in 2004, so it's now 16 plus years ago. It's a long time ago, and yet it's the memories are very, very sharp for me. And but Jeff, I loved it. I did I really enjoyed it. My mother was on my back saying, "Tristan, what are you doing? You're only working 12 hours a week in a nursing home." And I was confident that I was going to. My response was, "Mum, I'm going to create something. I'm going to create something that's useful to me and useful to others." And I was very firm on that belief. I didn't know what it was just yet, Jeff, but I was firm that. And my mum's response to that was Tristan, that's great, but can you get a job while you're going to do this?
Right. Yeah, I get it. I've heard that many times.
yeah, that's right. But Jeff, what happened a few months on? I was doing this 12 hours per week. I was trying to figure out how I was going to turn this into firstly a job, and then hopefully a career. And I was speaking to the manager of this first nursing home that I had been working at. Her name was Reka. She was a lovely lady, and she said, "Tristan, there's a nursing home up the road, and they've got a manager. Her name is Yvonne, and Yvonne would like to meet you because she's looking for a new physiotherapist for her aged care home."
Okay.
And I said, "Well, that's interesting, Reka, and I'm not doing all that much, so I might just drive up the road."
I have some more hours left after the 12 hours in a week.
Right? Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
And so I went and spoke to Yvonne, and Yvonne and I got talking, and I was able to. She was able to trust that I was going to hopefully be of useful service to her and her residents. And so I become the physiotherapist at her nursing home as well. And I can't remember the number of hours, Jeff, but let's say it was another 12 hours a week or thereabouts.
Right.
And then
I think a light bulb has come on in my head, but I'll let you keep talking.
Yeah, sure. So Jeff, and then as the year went on, this is 2004, as the year progressed, I continued to do the best work I could, learn as much as I could, connect with people, both the residents and the managers of these nursing homes. And by the end of the year, I had more work than I could physically do as a physical therapist. And I was dashing around from nursing home to nursing home 6 or 7 days a week. And I quite simply needed help. And so I asked for help. And I asked for help in a way which was looking for a part-time physical therapist to come and work with me.
Mm-hmm.
And in early 2005, I was now a 25-year-old, recently graduated physiotherapist, recently into the industry of helping older people, but I had a purpose of being of service, and I employed my first team member in early 2005, and that's when this idea became a business, and I've been growing it, and I'm still the business is now called the Physio Co,
right,
and evolved and changed a lot since, but that was the starting point of it, Jeff.
That's amazing. So yeah, as soon as you said, like, somebody said, "Oh, these people over here at this other nurse," I was like, "Aha, you stumbled onto a niche." and it seems like it wasn't a kind of an underserviced niche.
Yeah. Well, what's doing work that doing useful work that other people don't want to do is that I found it, or I sort of discovered, Jeff, and that's but it wasn't always the case. And what I mean by that is in the 16 years that have followed, aged care and providing services to older people has become much more popular, at least here in Australia. And not because it's more sexy, but because of the volume of work, and so the opportunity that exists in that previously under identified sort of group of people.
Right. That's amazing. So let's transition here, because you've got this whole other piece of your life, right, where you've discovered something since you've started your own business about business culture. So let's talk about the genesis of that idea. What's the superhero, origin story of culture is everything?
Yeah. So Jeff, I think I just need to progress the Physio Co story just a little bit,
and
then
that
will help us to come to the culture is everything side of things.
Okay. Perfect.
And so Jeff, in 2005 was just me and then became a couple of other physical therapists. And by 2009, so if we flick forward about 4 or 5 years, this opportunity of serving older people continued to grow, and I continued to do my best to grow and grow a business. And by 2009, I had grown a service that now had a group of, there was 20 of us. There were 20 physical therapists and 1 or 2 sort of admin staff helping to support us out there in the field, so to speak. And but in 2009, I had moved from a passionate physiotherapist with an idea of building something useful to a very reactive manager or supervisor of said 20 people. And I was spending all day and all night answering phone calls and just being reactive to the team. And it was I just wasn't enjoying it. It was either I need to find a solution to this or I need to do something different.
You were putting out fires all the time.
You got it. That's right. And they were very capable people that were in our team, but I just hadn't set them up for success. I hadn't empowered them to make the decisions that they were very capable of making, and I was the bottleneck in the way. Jeff.
Well, that's very nice. I mean, at least you see it now.
Yeah. I didn't see it at the time, Jeff.
No. 2020 hindsight, right?
Yeah, but what I did do is I believe there was a better way, but I just didn't know what it was. And so I did what I thought was the best decision I ever made at the time, but it was scary as hell as well.
Right.
And they said I took a 3-week break. I took and I headed up your way, Jeff. My fiance at the time, who's now my wife, and I headed up to North America. We went to we visited some seniors healthcare businesses in Orange County, California.
Nice.
And we also went up to and visited some seniors healthcare businesses in Vancouver, Canada. And it was on that trip that some hindsight, some space from the reactiveness of the business, and also some discovery of what might be possible. And when I returned, to my surprise and relief, the business was still there and everyone was still doing what they were supposed to be doing. So that was a learning in itself.
Right. Every entrepreneur tells the same story, but it's like they never hear it in time, right? They have to live through it, Yeah.
Entirely. But on that trip to North America, I discovered something called that was brand new to me, and it's an age-old concept, or it's a very old concept, and that is a business based upon a strong set of core values, and really a really clear purpose, or compelling purpose, or mission, or Simon Sinek might call it the why. The why does a business exist, or the cause that they serve.
Nice. Okay.
And that discovery was really useful for me, and I then worked hard to discover the core purpose of the Physio Co, and which has now been set and has been set for the 10 years plus since, and that is that the Physio Co exists to help seniors stay mobile, safe, and happy. A very simple concept, but that's what we're about. And then we've got these 4 set of core values, which is respect everyone, be memorable, think big, act small, and find a better way, are the 4 core values. And they become the cornerstone of us building what I now talk about as the culture is everything system. And a culture is everything system is really the foundations of the repeatable parts of a business, which are really, really important to have in place. And they can be flexible. Some parts of it can be flexible, but some parts of it are quite rigid, and it forms the foundation of a team that the owner and the leaders and the team members all know what's expected and how they can be empowered to do their very best work by building a very strong culture. But that did start from a whole lot of pain, Jeff. And then,
as all good things have to be birthed, right? There has to be a painful birthing, I think.
Yeah, that's it. And so Jeff, just to quickly expand on that, is that 2009 was a critical year for me. Kimberly and I got married that year. We also discovered a better way of running our business, and we also entered a third-party survey, if you will, to get some feedback from our team members. I saw this advertised. It says if you want to get some honest, candid feedback from your team members as to what's working and not working, into this survey, and some consulting firm will give you some feedback. And I really felt like I didn't have the right information at the time, so I entered this process,
right?
Which was useful. I got some really valuable responses, and it really helped us to make some tweaks and improve. But what I didn't realize at the time was that said consulting firm was then going to create a list of what was going to be the very first of the list of the 50 best places to work in Australia. Was the
wow. Okay.
And, I got a call a couple of months later to say, hey, Tristan, by the way, you are going to be on this list and published in this magazine as one of Australia's 50 best places to work as a result of that survey that you were part of.
Wow.
And I was quite shocked and taken aback, and I didn't even know this was happening. But that happened, and that was very, very exciting. And we realized that there was a real opportunity for us to build a great place to work that wins awards and gets acknowledged for being a great place to work as a way to grow our business and attract people into this less ugly duckling sort of industry, I suppose, Jeff. And so flick forward 11 consecutive years, the Physio Co from 2009 all the way through to 2019 has been listed as one of Australia's 50 best places to work.
That's nice. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good place to work then. I think you've proven it.
That's it. And then, Jeff, just to wrap up the question you asked, and that is that as we started winning these awards, people would ask me, how do you do it? Tristan, how do you build a strong team? How do you build a great place to work? And I would give them this long, drawn out, hard to follow story that made sense to me. And they're like, yeah, good. Yeah, that's good, Tristan. And
right.
So then I could see the blank looks on their faces, and I realized I had to do better than this. So I listed down the steps or the repeatable things we were doing in our business that were the foundations of this great place to work. And that turned out to be a lot of steps. It's turned out to be something. I've discovered 19 things that we're doing over and over again.
Wow, Jeff, 19 things. Okay.
Yeah. So there's now a downloadable document that people can check out if they're interested. It's called the Culture is Everything Checklist. It's the 19 steps to building a great place to work. But again, 19 is too many. So then that's been regrouped into the four foundations of a great place to work. And so the culture is everything book that I wrote is based on the culture is everything system. And that's these four foundational things that we do. But if you flesh it, dig deep, Jeff, there is 19 repeatable steps. That is the culture is everything system. And this has been a passion that I've discovered because work has got to be a meaningful thing that we do. And that's all the veers in my career are about engaging more deeply and serving the world better, but also being more satisfied by doing it as well, Jeff.
No, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, that the whole idea of somehow finding a way to have enjoying your vocation has been sort of like a holy grail that many people have been searching for a long time. So good on you that you're helping, point us in the right direction. So that's great. So as we wrap up, it sounds like we're wrapping up. Tell people how they can best get in touch with Tristan White of Australia.
Absolutely, Jeff. Don't get me wrong. We could definitely keep talking because there's more veers that we could get to. But I reckon this is the right time is to leave it in a little bit of suspense, Jeff. So I think that's
if there's more veers, we can talk. We can go another 10 minutes if you like.
Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one other veer that's happened more recently.
Okay,
and that is
perfect.
And then I'll tell you a little bit more about the website and the like. But
okay.
But Jeff, the Physio Co continued to grow, and we got to a peak of 150 team members at the Physio Co.
That's a lot.
In 2019, yeah, servicing, helping older people in 6 states of Australia.
Wow.
And by that point, I'd also shared. I'd also had a business partner. Initially, it was just me, obviously from the start, but
right.
we'd. Along the way, as a way to diversify and trying to help more older people, is that we had found a partner, and it was a partner that was an operator of retirement villages, and which was a good strategic partner because they had 90 locations around Australia where they had operated retirement villages and elderly people who could benefit, or at least some of them could benefit from physical therapy services.
Sure.
And so, but being in business with a publicly listed organization, which is what we were at the time, is there's a lot of focus on profit. There's a lot of focus on revenue. There's a lot of focus on
bottom lines.
Bottom line. You got it. That's right. And but Jeff, as I peered off, so if I look backwards in my career from this point in 2019, I've spent a whole lot of time investing in growing a business, a team, a culture, and the like, all based upon visiting clients. Most of our clients have been inside nursing homes, inside aged care facilities,
right?
And what happened next is that I realised that the future of helping elderly people in Australia was not only focused on nursing homes. I thought there is much more focus on people staying in their own homes and living longer. And so, Jeff, it was really, really, really difficult. But with a team of 150 people and with a business partner who really needed and wanted us to focus on revenue and profit, we boldly, myself and my 4-person leadership team, working with our 150 team members, decided that we were not going to renew a contract to visit 70 nursing homes around Australia,
right?
Because we were not satisfied with the culture that was within those nursing homes. We weren't satisfied. We were providing a great workplace for our team because of what it was like when they went to these nursing homes.
Right.
Also because of the commercials, the price that they were expecting us to do it at was getting lower and lower because of the competition that was existing.
Sure.
And so, Jeff, we boldly decided to reduce the size of our team in 2019 significantly, and we are now down to a team of about 70 team members, which is very, very difficult decision making because we the elderly people who are at those homes don't get to see our physiotherapist, which I think is biasly, I think we're the best physios in the business, Jeff, and that's what every business owner tells you.
Yeah, of course.
but also, Tim, but the thing is, a big veer, because I think we can serve the world in a better way by connecting more deeply, all the way back to what you said 45 minutes ago, Jeff, and that is that you didn't want anyone between you and your clients.
Right.
And this is the thing, is we'd found ourselves with a middleman, if you will, between us and our clients, and that being the operator of the aged care facility.
Right.
And so we've now made a significant twist, and the Physio Co is smaller for the time being, but we are more deeply connected with our clients, and we're helping them to stay more mobile, safe, and happy based upon what they need, as opposed to what any nursing home thinks is best for them. And so that's been a very big veer in recent times, Jeff.
I can imagine. And it's got to be, because my mom has mobility issues more than my dad, but it's got to be a huge challenge to get into people's houses. It's one thing to partner with, an elder care facility because they're there, right? They're a captive audience. What's the strategy to get into the home? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
So it's got to be hard.
Do you mean physically to get into their home, or do you mean to actually
just to connect with them? How do you make those connections?
So there's a couple of ways, Jeff. There is a network of people that we need to be connected with, and that includes doctors, GPs, nurses and the like, who are also providing services to older people in their own homes. But if there's one most significant influencer, it is the family of the older person.
Okay.
And this is more traditional than anything else, but if we were to choose the most influential person in an elderly person's life, this is a big generalization, but we have to try and make decisions on this, and that is that it is the eldest daughter of an elderly person is more often than not, and it's either eldest daughter or the daughter-in-law of the wife of the eldest son is the most significant influencer in the life of an older person. And so we need to make relationships and connect with those people, and the internet is pretty helpful in finding those people for us.
Right. Good for you. Because I can tell you did a lot of homework to get there. Yeah, you did. Good for you.
Well, Jeff,
You're committed. You're committed.
Convincing, not only do I believe it's the right thing to do, but it's also the right thing for our clients, but I also think our business is more sustainable because of the VIA. There's less risk involved.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
With our clients. But just remember that I had to convince and work closely with a board of publicly listed investors to get through this. And so there's a whole lot of research required to be able to present that business case and to make it happen, Jeff. So yeah, there's a fair bit behind this.
Yeah, there is. So good for you. I mean, you're not shying away from what would seem like a very daunting challenge to me. So congratulations on some.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, we got to do what our heart tells us, and my heart definitely believe that serving elder people is something I believe in. That is the absolutely thing. That's something I enjoy doing. But we have to do it in a way which makes more than fiscal sense.
Right.
And that's what this decision was about.
Right. And I think. One more question, and then we can wrap up, and you can talk about, like, just because now every time you say something new, you're making me think about more things about my mom, right? Because I'm always trying to help her with little massage tricks and trigger points, and this is sore. Well, try this. If you can do a little self massage here or there. Are you teaming with other modalities, or are you strictly physio kind of thing?
Yeah, so good question, Jeff. We have over the years we have definitely worked with occupational therapists,
right?
OT,
okay.
And we do have a member of our team who's an OT at the moment, and we've certainly worked with podiatrists as well.
Good. Yep.
Excuse me. However, as the years go by, I think a really curated offering of being the very best at one particular modality is our real strength.
Well, you can always refer too.
Entirely.
For sure. Like if you see something, okay, this person needs whatever, you can always have a list of referrals, right? which I think is really, that's probably the best way to team in that scenario. I was just curious, but thank you. Okay. So talk a little bit about how people can best get in touch with Tristan White in Australia.
Jeff, just send a letter in the mail. Jeff, I think is the best way that to get us down here. It might take a while, but I promise to reply. I joke.
Or
let's use the internet. So there's the best place to find me on the web is tristanwhite.com.au.
Right.
That is my personal blog site where you can download that Culture is Everything checklist.
Perfect.
You can download a copy of the Culture is Everything book.
Nice.
It's a story, and the story and system of a startup that became Australia's best place to work is the subtitle of that book. And there's all sorts of other resources there, and you might be interested in checking out the Culture is Everything Club that I mentioned at the start.
Right.
But Jeff, probably most significantly for podcast listeners, because if you're listening for a podcast right now, and that's where you'll be hearing us on this pod, you're obviously a podcast listener. I too have a podcast. It's called the Think Big Act Small podcast. Think Big Act Small podcast. So if you'd like to learn a bit more about my story, but also about how other leaders are learning the skills, building the confidence, and being supported to be the best leaders they can be, to ultimately create more great places to work, the Think Big Act Small podcast is probably the place to go, Jeff.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes. I mean, you're already talking to podcast listeners, so they need to know that. I may go back and put it at the beginning too, just in case. Okay. Yeah, hey, this has been a blast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and getting up so damn early to talk to me in the States. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jeff. It's not that early anymore.
Not anymore. We talked an hour. All right. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for taking the time to ride along with us on another episode of Vroom Vroom Veer. For podcast info and show notes, be sure to head over to vvveer.com. That's VVER.com. Man, that's fun to say. And we'll catch up with you next time here on Vroom Vroom Veer.